So you've worked with some really big artists: DMX, John Mayer, Master
Yeah.
P, Chris Brown, Trey Songz, Alien Ant. Some of these people I don't know. Alien Ant Farm, DJ Premier, Jerry Seinfeld. I know that name. The Executioners, and many more.
Yeah.
So, do you care to tell us who the good guys and who the bad guys are?
I wish I knew. I could tell you DMX, as troubled as that man was, and he was a tsunami, if there ever has been a tsunami in the form of a human being. Actually, I think DMX was one of the most pure, incredible people I've ever met. And I say that even though I worked with him for about a month, and it was actually a nightmare working with him because you're dealing with he's no longer around, but definitely bipolar characteristics, definitely heavy drug addiction, definitely unpredictability. That is kind of makes it scarier to be around him. But what I learned from him is that he was a victim of his upbringing. Basically, his mother was a prostitute. This kid, when he was 8 years old, used to go to bed with literally his mom 10 feet away, bringing, customers in, who was also a crack addict. So it's not like he was given the best, kind of future to begin with. And I think he actually did the best that he could under the circumstances. But I truly believe that the heart and soul of DMX is extremely pure. And he's the only one that really comes to mind where I could tell you, I know DMX was not Luciferian. I know DMX prays to God. I know DMX was a very holy person in his soul. And I truly believe that man is next to God right now because he was a victim of his circumstance more than anything else, So that's the one.
100%. That's great insight. So,
Yeah.
what about John Mayer? Where would you put him? I asked that because my wife and I'm sorry, we are huge John Mayer fans. We went to Europe and watched him unveil his Battle Studies album for 4 nights in
Yeah.
Manchester, London, Wolverhampton, and Aberdeen. And they were in small venues. It was a real treat. We've seen him 76 times, I think.
Oh, wow. Wow.
We
Wow.
might have an illness, I'm not sure. But there are nice places to go. We've seen him in Madison Square Garden and Radio City, Las Vegas, LA, you name it. Anyhow, I digress.
I would refer to, Steve Jobs in his biography right before he died actually talked about John Mayer. And I would refer to what he said about John Mayer, which firstly, John Mayer, I believe, is one of the most talented individuals. You rarely see talent like that. I mean, this guy's the kind of guy that picks up a guitar and he is beyond talented. God has given him so much. He's handsome. He's like charismatic. And I do like him, right? But at that time we were working together was right around the time that he also knew Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs talks about how John Mayer is his own worst enemy. And I also agree with that because while he is incredibly talented, I've seen him do things that I don't think have been really mature, kind of the celebrity gone wild, so to speak, and a little bit of narcissism perhaps. But you get that with artists.
Well, there's no question. I mean, I know probably as much about John Mayer as I do about JFK's assassination. I think he went through a very rough growing up period, but he blew up as a star at 20.
Yeah.
And I've gone to so many concerts and charity benefits where he was performing, and I've seen these beautiful, some of the most beautiful women I've ever laid eyes on that would do anything to catch his eye.
This is what annoyed me about John Mayer. Could I tell you the specific thing that annoyed the crap out of me is that you're John Mayer. You're already the most handsome dude. You have literally, if you opened up your door and you said beautiful women line up, he'll never get out of that bedroom. He could,
They'd be around the block.
Until he's old and stuff. But we're doing interviews and he's it was for the bucket list movie, by the way, because the video I was directing was for the bucket list movie Rob Reiner directed with, I believe, Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman, right?
Uh-huh.
And so the reporters ask him, they're like, do you have a bucket list? And then he's like, well, I got something that rhymes with bucket list. And he was definitely referring to all the women in his life. And I don't know. I just think things like that are cheesy to say. You're John Mayer. Obviously, it's like the Beatles. Yes, you could have sex with 90% of the women on the streets and stuff. It's just I found that to be very distasteful and arrogant of him. But, whatever.
So I met the dude probably 7 times. Yeah. And we flew all the way over to England, as I mentioned, to see him in Manchester. The next night we were in Aberdeen. It was a small venue, maybe 1,500, 2,000 people. We were walking out. It was in January. It's freezing cold. I don't know if you've ever been to Aberdeen, Scotland in the winter, but oh my gosh, it's like
I've been to Wales. It's
you
like
can
I
see
just
the
felt
North
it.
Pole from there, I think. So all the buses were lined up. I said, Helen, this is our chance. Let's hang out and see if we can say hello to John. So sure enough, 2 minutes later, he walks out and I'm yelling, John, come down here, sign autographs. He walks over. So there are 20 people there. He starts at the beginning of the line and he walks down. And I said, hey, John, we came all the way from Atlanta to see you. Oh, that's great. I was driving up 85 just yesterday. Oh, that's funny. You know, that's a lyric in his song.
Yeah.
And he went to the next person. So every encounter I had with him was just like that, except the 8th time I met him, and I wanted to get into this a little bit with you. For 10 years, I've worked at the Grammys for the executive producer. And it was my Walter Mitty experience. I basically was able to shadow him. He wanted coffee, lunch, go to the bank, whatever it was. I was the oldest PA in America for 10 days a year for 10 years. And it was a phenomenal experience because I love music so much. But I saw my man crush. There comes John Mayer. He's presenting. And I went up to him and I said, hey, John, I had a beer with just about everybody in your crew. And I thought that someday you and I would have a beer, but you kind of fixed that, didn't you? And I was alluding to the fact that he had become sober. He said, yeah, that's right. And he said, and that's probably why I'm able to stand here at 11 o'clock in the morning and have a lucid conversation with you. He immediately won me over and earned my respect because I think all that stuff you're talking about is in his past. I think I think Hollywood, I think they punished him severely because, you know, he went on that interview with Playboy magazine, and I am convinced that he was stoned when he did it. And he made some off-color comments about some of the ladies that he had consorted with, and that did not fly well. He said that somebody was sexual napalm. Who did he make that comment about?
I know. Was it Jennifer? What's her name? Jennifer something.
Yes.
Or Jessica something, maybe.
But anyway, he meant no harm. But unless you're Jennifer somebody, he didn't like that. And so Hollywood really turned against him and punished him. And then he came out with his apology album and said, I'm a good man that had to learn the lessons the hard way. And so he basically went to Montana and isolated for 3 years, got off the scene, and came back to try and reinvent himself, which I think he's done. I think he's really found his footing. All right, we probably ought to get back to politics. I want to ask you, you know, P. Diddy. I've had no interest in P. Diddy. It's not my genre, not my kind of guy. But all this stuff is now coming out, and I've read that P. Diddy and Usher abused Justin Bieber when he was under the age of 18. Do you know anything about that? Have you heard rumors or confirmed, denied?
I don't have any concrete evidence, but I totally believe that it happened. I totally believe that P. Diddy first abused Usher, and that was part of the whole thing. I mean, there's a lot of videos out there. There's actually a video of what looks like Justin Bieber giving a to a football player out there. And that's very suspicious because he's literally on his knees in front of the dude's which is not normal behavior for most heterosexual men.
I suspect what you're saying is true. And I think a crime against a child is the worst crime a human being can commit, in my opinion. A defenseless child. And I've met Justin Bieber, and I've not a huge fan. No, I am a fan. I am a fan of Justin Bieber, but you know, I'm not a little girl fan like most of his fans are. But I do like his music, especially when he does collaborations with other people. He seemed like an innocent kid to me that, like John Mayer, found fame, fortune, and temptation at an all too young age. Usher got in because he mentored Justin Bieber, and Scooter Braun, I think, really facilitated that. I don't know whether Scooter knew what hell he was unleashing on Justin Bieber's life or not, or whether he was every much as surprised by it. But I think that is the tragedy of Justin Bieber. I think Justin's gone through a very difficult time getting his head back together. And he's got a beautiful, lovely wife now. I wish him the best.